Who is the "there's always one" person at your work? The web filter stopped working in our office, and everyone realized it and played it cool so they could read news or listen to Pandora or whatever on the low. Then some idiot put YouTube on full screen in full view of the office with the volume on his speakers all the way up. The IT head was walking through and watched this idiot laughing out loud to Keemstar. The filter was back on within 30 minutes. Offices treating employees like elementary school children? Well, I guess the guy watching Keemstar proved he needs to be treated like one, huh? And oh yeah, before I forget, other me's over on Rufus Stories doing what he does best, unpacking some crazy relationship stories, you know what I mean? It's a good time, I promise. Links in the description if you're down. Alright, back to these stories. Story 2. We get given company shares every year. All you have to do is agree, and they're credited to you automatically. You can't cash them out for 5 years though, so most people either cash them out on a 5-year delay or save them up for big purchases. One guy refused to accept them on the grounds that by the time he can cash them out, our financial system will have utterly collapsed and currency will be worthless. He's held out on that belief for like 12 years. Just to really rub it in, the stocks are worth more than double what they were 12 years ago. Story 3. At my last job, there was a food thief. This went on for a while. I was working at a large professional firm where everyone had to be degreed and have a solid work history before being hired. We had a multi-floor office building with about 500 employees on site. There was a break room on each floor with a fridge, microwave, coffee pots, and so on. Food would just randomly disappear. For example, I would get a box of Jimmy Dean breakfast croissants and put them in the freezer on my floor. That was supposed to be breakfast for a week. I got there on day 2 to find them gone. Like, what the hell? Who does that? I even wrote my name on the box. This happened again and again all over the company. It went on for a couple of years along with other food. Leftovers people brought from home, half-eaten sandwiches, etc. Stuff just started disappearing randomly. About 4 months after I left the company, I got a text from a coworker that they had finally caught the food thief. Turns out one girl there had her food stolen like 6 times in a 2-week period. She got fed up about it and made some burritos but put black food coloring in the refried beans. Once it got stolen, she sent out an email that the food thief struck again and that their mouth would be black for an hour or 2. Someone walked into the bathroom to find a girl desperately trying to wash out her mouth and reported her to management. They took her to HR and fired her on the spot. The weird thing was, she was from a completely different floor. She would go to other floors and pilfer their fridges for whatever reason. Story 4. We had a break at work and went to grab a sandwich at a supermarket. He took a jar of peanut butter. Not that weird, right? He takes the lid off and peels off the piece of plastic. Getting weird, right? He puts his pinky in, takes it out, licks his pinky, then says, No, not the right brand. Disgusting. He puts the lid back on and places it back. Like, what the heck? Brian, I will never touch you again, you gross person. Story 5. That one schmuck who misuses the heck out of amenities or minor infractions that management ignores and then ruins it for everyone else. Example? I used to work at a small-town movie theater and we had like a 30-minute lunch break. Our boss was pretty cool and was fairly lenient about breaks. If you went somewhere to get food and brought it back to eat, he would let you take your full 30 minutes when you got back, especially if you grabbed him some food while you were out. Also, if you brought food from home and didn't go get any, he didn't really care how much time you took for your break as long as it was around 30 minutes. It worked great and everyone was happy. You never felt rushed to eat your food. Then Jim, not his real name, started pushing it. He started taking upwards of 20 minutes to go get his food. This was a small town. It took 15 minutes max, even if the fast food places were busy, and then taking almost 40 minutes to eat it while he messed around on his phone playing blackjack and poker. Then one day, he took an hour to go get food and get back. The boss was angry, but Jim started throwing tantrums about not being treated fairly and being singled out. So now, we have 30 minutes for lunch and not 1 second more. Story 6. Worked in a wood products mill years ago. Had one operator who wanted to be a supervisor or a foreman. He was out one day and we had to make adjustments to his machine. Each machine had an info sheet that we used for reference when doing this. We were looking for the reference sheet and came across a small hardbound notebook. We started looking through it and realized the schmuck had been timing everyone's breaks and making notes on everybody. You could see the break room and all paths to it from his machine. We realized that we were being spied on, so we took his notebook to what we called the glue room, where we kept the machines that mixed and dispensed industrial-strength wood glue. We carefully put about a 1-inch spot of glue on each page and pressed it shut. After a few hours in the hot curing room, it was essentially a block of wood. We put it back where we found it, and he never said a word. Story 7. The person who works the reception desk at my job can walk, but always insists on taking the rascal scooter all over campus. A few months ago, she interrupted a presidential forum. I work at a college when she came rolling in on the scooter, knocking chairs over, etc. It was a mixture of hilarity and horror. A year or so ago, she took the scooter 4 blocks up and through the McDonald's drive-thru, only to have the scooter go out. So she ended up having to call the school and tell them what went down, and they had to send a truck to retrieve her and the scooter. Every day is an adventure here. Story 8. The passive-aggressive CCer is someone who always just noticed something that has nothing to do with them or has a suggestion, which usually shows they know nothing about how the other department operates. They then send it to their coworker while CCing the whole company to make themselves look good, which they usually don't. I make a point to un-CC everyone if replying to such a person, pointing out how wrong they are, or I stick to one-word responses. I'll still contact only them if I notice an error on their end because I've seen what happens when both sides get sucked into these games, tons of long, petty emails and wasted time. Story 9. The older woman who was never, ever happy. Get to leave early the Friday before Christmas? Well, we never got to do that for the 18 years I've worked here. All these years, it's probably a trick. Have an after-work beer barbecue for the 4th of July. Sniff. Well, I suppose if you're an alcoholic, you like those sorts of things. Suggest a potluck for Thanksgiving. Coworker, who quit 5 years ago, wanted to do potlucks all the time. It was so inconvenient. I hate them after coworker always wanted them. I bet this one will be terrible too. Story 10. The friggin' snitch. We have this woman who used to be a manager a decade ago but stopped showing up and was fired. She was rehired a year or so ago with an unpromotable caveat, but is trying desperately to move back up the ladder. Her main plan for doing this? Ratting out everybody above her for everything. Playing your own music in the store after upper management leaves, walking off the floor to get some water or coffee. Breathe out a turn. You'll hear about it from the boss the next day. And now she's taken to secretly videotaping us on the floor and sending them to the boss. And absolutely the worst offense, I've been planning on leaving the company after 12 years and a month and a half for personal reasons and discussed the best courses of action with my former boss. My former boss showed up at our Christmas party, pulled me to a corner, and gave me a few more pointers. Afterwards, I turned around and Snitchy Snitch had silently moved within earshot. The next day, my boss knew I was leaving. You only get one chance to put in your 2 weeks notice, and you took that away from me. Snitch, you took that away from me. Story 11. I once worked with an IT guy who never washed his hands after using the restroom, and this was the same guy constantly handling everyone's keyboards and computer mice. After seeing it happen more than once, I made sure to keep a stash of Clorox wipes in my drawer just to protect myself. Then, to make things worse, I reported him to HR because I took note of this twice. Do you know what HR did? In one of the weekly company emails, they wrote this lame little remember to wash your hands like, that's it. The dude eventually got fired because he committed some felonies and is currently in prison. The real crime was not washing his hands after wiping his butt. Story 12. The really dude bro guy at my job who has to let you know all the time that he likes women. Talks about how hot the boss's daughter is, starts rating the girls here by number on a 1 to 10 scale, including a different guy's wife. Asks me for my ratings and I say, nah man, that ain't me. Then asks what I mean by that, and keeps asking why I don't want to answer. Shoot man, I just want to vacuum in peace. Then he starts thinking I'm gay, which is only half true, and getting weird about it. Yeah, I like men, but I'm taken now, hopefully forever, by an amazing girlfriend, and I'm not about that now. Story 13. I manage a restaurant. Inevitably, I will hire someone who is absolutely too slow to work here. But there's really no way to gauge speed in a job interview. I essentially have to take someone at their word. It's funny because I can't really fire them for being too slow, at least not right off the bat. I'm in an at-will state, so yes, I can fire you for any reason whatsoever. I can fire you for looking too much like someone who bullied me in high school if I want, and face zero legal repercussions, but 1. I don't want to fire anyone, if possible. High turnover is a telltale sign of poor leadership, and furthermore, there is a learning curve where people have to get good at their new job. 2, if I do fire them on the spot without giving them a chance to improve, and more importantly, without proper documentation, they're going to get unemployment, which corporate adds to my labor cost. 3, for at least the first month, I legitimately can't tell if they truly suck or if they're just new guy awkward. About once a year, I hire someone who is painfully slow and just isn't going to cut it. They do things like spend 15 minutes making a dish that should take 3 to 4. They do their daily prep at the speed of mud. They spend the better part of a standard presidency term washing dishes, etc., and they show zero signs of improvement. After 2 to 3 months, I can start writing them up for poor job performance, but our company policy states I have to give them 4 write-ups, an initial discussion, a documented warning, a final warning, and termination to ensure they don't get unemployment, with at least 2 weeks between each one to see if improvement occurs. So I just have to deal with things for a bit of a while. It's a drag, partially because it slows down my speed of service, but truth be told, even slowpokes can be found a place that is semi-constructive and out of the way. The biggest downside is I have to listen to my crew complain about Comet McSpeedy Flash on a daily basis. Story 14. Myself and a couple of others come into the office at 7 a.m. We typically leave around 4:15, 4:30 on a normal day. There is always this one schmuck who doesn't come in until 9, 10, and whenever we're leaving says, "Wow, banker's hours today?" or "Oh, half day today?" or some such. One day when I left late with the new CEO right next to him, they yelled out, "Wow, this is the latest I've ever seen you here." We've all gotten into the habit of basically just replying with, "Yeah, I thought the same thing at 7 when I got here. Where were you? Definitely not here." Story 15. A bit late for lunch, stomach growling. I opened the company fridge looking for my pork fillet with chanterelle sauce and potato wedges, but no dice. All I see is some moldy jam, a gigantic ketchup bottle, and 2 pale hot dogs someone probably forgot a week ago. Thinking, mother trucker, I turn around, announcing it in front of the whole lunchroom. Who here took my lunch? I just want to know. Crickets. I shake my head at the crowd in disbelief. I sit down with my buddies, hungry as heck, and get an apple from a friend which I'm too furious to eat. 20 minutes later, we're about to leave, and the squirmy dude holding 2 lunch boxes comes shuffling towards our table. His eyes wander around the room like he's about to ask me out to prom. He hands over my scraped, empty lunchbox, corrects his glasses, saying, "Gee, I think I might have eaten your food." He holds forth the other box, continuing, "Here, you can have mine." I look down at the box with these 2 lone, sad, frickin' hot dogs in it, and I cannot speak because I'm absolutely fuming inside. Then I hear, "We cool?" He said, "Wait, what?" He said, "We cool?" after offering those hot dogs as a fair trade? No, that's not cool. That's a declaration of war. Story 16. I have this one coworker who chooses to fight the weirdest battles but criticizes you if you actually have one worth fighting for. For instance, I've not had hot water in my apartment for like 2 months. It's not cold, it's just not warm. I've tried inspectors, going to the city, even reporters, etc. I'm finally getting it today, but the point is I didn't come to work the one day so I could do all of these things in one day and mentioned it in a group text. The next day he came up and asked me what happened, and I told him, and he's like, "What are you going to do then?" I said, "Get a lawyer, continue to try." He was basically like, "Why bother? Nothing else you did worked." Every time I suggested something, he'd shoot it down. He's this 24-year-old kid who does this on the regular. I eventually just told him to leave my cube. During Christmas season, he was talking about not buying presents for his family because he was basically, quote, sticking it to the man and corporations. A few days ago, he was crying about Filthy Frank not making videos anymore. I don't get this kid. Story 17. Janet, she's a person who will only take half of an item of communal food. She will then put the other half back in the box. A couple of boxes of donuts for the office. You can bet Janet has torn off the halves of 7 of those donuts because she is watching her figure. Ooh, the boss brought muffins. Nope, there are only muffin halves because Janet came through 12 times this morning tearing off a half of a dozen. She won't eat the other half that no one else wants. She just makes a new half from one whole. Just eat the whole muffin, Janet, you freaking whale. Story 18. I have a front desk receptionist who is the hub of gossip and constantly leaves the desk without a headset, so the phone is ringing and I've got visitors just milling about. But she kisses up so hard that it's fine and everyone loves her. That is, unless you don't flatter her, even though she's below me in our department's org chart. She's my boss. He doesn't give me the respect I deserve. Lady, I'm too busy to personally slight you. Ever since then, her gaggle of cronies has complained to my supervisor about me sleeping at work in the basement or distracting IT employees. Like, guys, my job is to facilitate building problems with other departments. It's my job to distract them. Also, there are better places to sleep if I were so inclined. I also had the director of the IT department complain that I was eating lunch then punching out. No, I just have diagnosed adult ADHD. I'd have to check the clock to make sure I actually remember what time I punched out. My boss knows all this. She's protected by someone that she really flatters. It's infuriating having to worry about one of the parts of her gossip circle trying to affect my personal life by doing anything they can to ruin my reputation here. Story 19. The girl who was a complete basket case. She's always late, takes long lunches, is constantly losing her keys, and just sits on her phone or on Facebook when at the desk. Not to mention her personal and family life is just a mess and she tells everyone her drama. About 6 months ago, she got promoted to the position that was basically promised to me because we are union workers and she has seniority. Even though our boss has told me it was mine, there was nothing she could do, so I'm not a huge fan of her for a lot of reasons. Story 20. The professional shirker. There's one in every company, all across the army. There's always that one junior enlisted who manages to make themselves scarce during the bulk of each day. Whenever there is hard work to be done or a boring class to be sat through, the shirker is nowhere to be found. Later, you might learn that they found a broom closet to nap in, or an unoccupied room to watch movies, or a way to sneak out to get fast food. But somehow, they always manage to show up to formations on time. They materialize when they can sense their workday coming to a close or a difficult task being wrapped up. Somehow, someway, they almost never get in trouble for it. They are experts at avoiding work, towing boundaries, and having a nose for the bare minimum they actually need to do. Story 21. I like my coworkers, but I keep my work life completely separate from the rest of my life. This wasn't a problem until a year ago when we hired Brandy. Every day, Brandy peppers me with questions about my home life, my romantic life, my orientation, etc. Every day. I never answered any of them, ever. One time, I made friends with a woman named Britt whose roommate was friends with Brandy. Brandy liked to play telephone with Britt's roommate to learn things about me. It reached a head when Britt ended up developing unrequited feelings for me, and Brandy used the opportunity to make inferences about my romantic and preferences. I feel a little mistreated when I learned about that. Brandy throws unofficial office parties from time to time, and I'm not really trying to get close to anyone, so I never go. At these parties, she likes to play Who Would You Have Intimacy With in the Office. Apparently, I win every time. I hate it. I want to be left alone. I don't want to be objectified or have my personal life become a relevant component to my work. I just want to be left alone. Leave me be, Brandy. Leave me be. Story 22. I have a coworker. We'll call him Quipper. Quipper always has to have the final word. He's got to get his quip in there. If you quip back, he'll counter-quip. Quality is not a concern. He quips badly, relentlessly. If he's out of counter-quips to your counter-quips, he'll attack the quality of your counter-quip just to frustrate you into giving up so he can have the last quip. He will always instigate it. Every exchange must end with a quip war that Quipper must win. About a month ago, Quipper was quipping with my other coworker. We'll call him Frustrate. Frustrate was just too tired for a quip war and very plainly said he's not in the mood for this. Quipper quipped about Frustrate being a quip quitter, which made Frustrate more frustrated. I said, Quipper is such an antagonist that he can't not have the last word. Quipper gave me the look of a man who knew he had been checkmated and hated it. He tried to win by saying nothing. This agonized him. Quipper then did an absolutely genuine sigh of resignation, to which I asked, yes? Then for the very first time since I began working with him, Quipper resigned himself to utter defeat. Story 23. The guy who has to show you annoying videos all the damn time. Videos of him using some little phone app to sing along in some high-pitched chipmunk voice. A grown man. My nieces do things like that on their phones, and you know what? That's fine because those kids are 12 and 14-year-old girls, not a grown adult. Or videos of Jewish people dancing during a bar mitzvah or something, only the music is overlaid with rap or dubstep or something else. Trust me, I gotta see every variant there was. Guy has a bar mitzvah music overlay addiction, and I just don't give a darn. You walk away, humoring him with an okay, haha, funny, now I've got things to do response, and it's, but wait, you didn't see it all. Yeah, there's a good reason for that, and it's because I can feel my freaking IQ literally oozing out of my ears and the stupidity takes over, and I'd rather not succumb to the whole thing. I feel like I've lost another part of me every time I get shown this stupid stuff, and I just don't have the patience. That wig has burned up long ago. Now leave me the heck alone and quit disturbing us all with your stupid videos before I break that phone in half. And if you're enjoying the video though, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 24. Oh God, where to start? My coworker in question is like 2 or 3 of those people in one. He's the arrogant middle-aged guy who thinks his way is the only way to do anything, refuses to learn anything new, and calls everyone younger than him tech support. He believes he's the backbone of this company and nobody can do his job. You just got your fancy, useless degree and walked into this position while he worked for it. Whatever the heck that means. This guy voted for Trump, claims Mexicans are the problem with the U.S., but in the same breath says so are the liberals. Drives a 2-wheel drive pickup truck because he lives in the boonies but works a white-collar desk job. I could go on and on. Story 25. About once a year, we hire someone who seems to need to tell everyone, I'm a senior developer. They can't be bothered to listen or read the directions about how our company does things, usually dig around in code that is not part of their job, end up suggesting or arbitrarily deciding to implement change no one needs instead of doing their actual work, and then get fired about 90 days later. The funny thing is, the role they hired into is client implementation. Although it is a somewhat technical role involving coding and databases, a senior developer with his title wouldn't even apply for that. Story 26. The guy who was hired for a job he was unqualified to perform 3 years ago by a dude who quit just before he was fired for being a complete mess up. These days, his star hire spends most of his time complaining about how he's underutilized and how he was hired to do bigger and better things. That is, at least on the days he elects to come into the office at all. Between bouts of feeling entitled, he shares with us, in great detail, all of his very personal health issues and those of his girlfriend and her kid. The dude is morbidly obese and gives us the play-by-play on how he gets testosterone pellets surgically implanted in his butt these days to balance his metabolism because, it's totally not his fault that he's 500 pounds. I'm sure those 4,000-calorie breakfasts you eat on the clock every morning have nothing to do with it. Glad he's trying to address his health, but keep the medical details to yourself, please. He complains endlessly about how if we don't promote him, he's going to lose his car, his house, etc., but then drops hundreds at a time at the cash-only hormone clinic. Dude, if a medical facility is cash-only, that means they aren't real doctors, and you could probably save some money by trading in for a car you can afford instead of the sports car you own now with a vanity plate, which is parked in the most expensive garage near the office. Then he complains that he feels excluded because nobody invites him to go along on coffee runs or lunch. I'm his boss for the last year and a half or so, and I swear I have tried in good faith to mentor and advance him, but every single problem in his life is somehow somebody else's fault. At no point has he ever accepted responsibility for any issues he's had, even when they are clearly direct results of his foolishness. He seems to feel that having avoided termination for this long is grounds for promotion and reward. Story 27. I'm a production manager at a factory and our front door is busted, so you have to pull it shut behind you in order to get it to lock. This has been a problem for 6+ months, and I have 10 employees who've worked here that whole time. Multiple times a day, I either see someone use the door and not pull it closed, I test it myself out of paranoia and it's open, or I'm in the back with the others when a random DHL guy comes wandering around the facility calling for us because the door is open. We do have a buzzer. The thing is that the front room is an office which is sometimes empty with the loud machines further in the back. Also, the office is where we keep our purses and stuff. Also, I often work alone at night. Also, this is a bad neighborhood. Really, there is always that one person who cannot shut the door, and then I look like the bad guy when I tell people to. I'm seriously about to start firing people over this petty stuff because how can I trust you to do any work unsupervised when it's all more complicated than shutting a darn door? Story 28. My boss at a retail chain, she's an anti-vaxxer against food stamp programs and against socialized medicine, even though the state's working poor program literally saved me from cancer 2 years ago. She makes 7 times what we do for doing the exact same job, other than the fact that her password lets her access employee records. She also has no idea that she makes 7 times what her management staff makes. She assumes the other managers and I are fiscally irresponsible since we all make the same amount of money. Meanwhile, we all work 25 to 29 hours a week, minimum wage plus 50 cents to $1 depending on seniority, and she makes $75K salaried for the same retail job. And every week she has a new story about how minimum wage workers have made it harder for her to buy diapers for her 3-year-old because, quote, entitled garbage kid millennials think they deserve $15 an hour to flip burgers, so I have to pay $3 a gallon for milk and $18 for diapers. As someone who reads and stays politically informed, it is hard to stay quiet, but I need this job if I want to not be homeless. Story 29. The guy who has to look over your shoulder at lunch and loudly scrutinize what you're eating. Oh, a bacon cheeseburger, heart attack on a plate, hehehehe. He always talks about the healthy salads he eats. Well, newsflash, it's not healthy when it's enough for 5 people, plus half a bottle of ranch dressing, more cheese and lettuce, half a bottle of bacon bits, and whatever else he can get his hands on. His healthy diet isn't working. He's been over 100 pounds overweight since I've known him, going on 9 years. Plus he moans and whispers to his food. Sounds like he's making love to the food, and he talks loudly about why no one eats in the break room anymore. It's because it's more peaceful at our desk, fat bum. Story 30. We have a less than useless guy. He was hired to pick up our overflow work. He's been trained to do everything the rest of us do, but he can never figure it out on his own. So now, if we have overflow, we have to sit there and help him do it, which takes twice as long as just doing it ourselves. I made him cheat sheets that walk him through every little step of a process, yet he always has a question when he's given a task. Every time I go to help, I pull out his cheat sheets and point to the next step he's supposed to take. Then I get a barrage of excuses on how he missed it and probably should have known that. Sorry, I'm so tired today. Sorry, I was thinking that was a different step. Oh geez, I just missed it. Again. Oh man. He's supposed to help answer the phones, but he's basically a human answering machine, and I need to return most of the phone calls he picks up. Or sometimes he'll say he'll handle it and then just plain doesn't do it, so after being ignored for a couple of days, I get to deal with an angry customer who hasn't been helped. On top of all that, he's a rambling talker. Every moment of silence needs to be filled with stories that have endlessly pointless details. The stories typically have no ending, they just roll into another story. Many of them have embellished facts, but I've started to call him out on lies, so that's diminished. He also likes to change his opinion to whatever yours is. Typically, I let him speak first and state my position on something. But sure as heck, a couple of days later, we have the exact same opinion on that topic when he feels the need to bring it up again. Really, he's a pretty nice guy, but he drives me up the wall. He was a sports coach/teacher his whole career, and really isn't cutting it at 47 at his desk job for the first time. Story 31. I'm a facilities specialist at a mid-sized corporate HQ for a pretty large property manager/developer. I've got stories about that guy that make up pretty much 40% of my staff. For instance, there has been someone flooding our bathrooms almost daily for the past 2 years. Honestly, if we ever manage to catch this person, I hope they go after them for damages that are getting close to a number that would make me sick typing it. We had an employee who attempted a lawsuit because my department didn't heed his doctor's advice. It's literally not my fault our furniture vendor is completely sold out of the piece of furniture that would help you out. We offered to let you purchase something, and if it was approved prior to purchase, we would have reimbursed the cost out of my budget. Another employee has been asking me to install a light above just her desk because there's not enough light. There's literally a bank of linear lights immediately above her workstation. I've got an SVP who told my boss I'm the worst associate in the company because procurement purchased copiers that were not up to the task of supporting the department he's in charge of. This was a choice I had 0% in and argued against. I have 7 years of print production experience. Don't use Ricoh copiers, kids. I've got an IT director who flagrantly swears at any chance he can seize. He also tried to tell me that because the laptop they spec'd me has 4 cores, you multiplied the processor speed stated by 4. Because 10 gigahertz processors exist in laptops, I have 3 years of help desk and 20 years of computer building experience. He also said that anyone who uses Facebook is, and I quote, a freaking waste at an AV vendor meeting. Story 32. The Snack King of Northern Virginia. People bring snacks into my office a lot. Most people will usually get a little bit of whatever is there that day if they see it. There's no central spot for the snack, so usually they just end up near whatever desk the person who brought them in sits at. Sometimes you find out about a snack and sometimes not. But there's one guy who never, ever fails to find whatever snacks were brought in, and not just on my floor, but on the floors above and below us. To his credit, he'll usually tell us the location of any good finds. He always manages to take the absolute maximum you can take without someone saying something too. And he'll come by every hour or two until it's all gone. The man just loves snacks. I once saw him buy a bag of chocolate coins at the convenience store on the ground floor of our building. I'm talking those gold foil wrap coins you give kids. I'd never even seen an adult actually purchase those as a snack before that moment. But my favorite story about him, and the one that got him his nickname, was the day the woman who sits next to me brought in a huge plate of muffins. He grabbed so many other things he could barely hold them all in his hands, and he came back for more so often it actually was kind of impressive he could eat that many. But anyway, later that day, I'm at a meeting with him, and sure enough, he has 2 muffins with him that he munches away at and eventually finishes in the first 20 minutes. Another coworker and I are looking at each other while he's doing this, just kinda smiling since we'd been talking about how hard he hit those muffins. We think he's done, but then I look over and the guy pulls another muffin out of his pocket. We burst out laughing. To an extent, it's a you had to be there kind of thing, but to see a grown man of maybe 50 pulling a full-size muffin out of his pocket in the middle of a meeting was just too funny for words. The craziest thing was it was in surprisingly good condition. I would think a pocket would smash the heck out of a muffin. I guess he has really loose pants, or maybe they're custom made for snack capacity like Marge's trench coat at the candy convention. Story 33. I work with this guy who talked trash about everyone, every single person, manager, employee, and customer. But he was so fake, he'd pretend to like customers, give them stuff for free so that they would in turn go to the customer service desk to compliment him so he could get a $5 gift card. He was slow, lazy, and a complete schmuck. He happens to be gay, so anything that happens, he uses that card. He would always throw that out there. Oh, they don't like me, or I didn't get the job because I'm gay. It was never about that. You're a crappy person. There were things he would never do, like fish for customers, bag for other cashiers, clean, or do cart runs. He would stand at his register and leer at everyone, talking trash to the other schmucks. Then, if you didn't help him, he'd run to leadership to complain. He would yell at and belittle other team members and give major attitude to them and customers. He's like, 55, guys, grow up. He would also complain to leadership about everyone and try to get everyone in trouble for anything. So basically, very few people like him. However, he'd never get in trouble for anything he did wrong, which was a lot. He'd always have an excuse. The way I'm writing this down doesn't convey how crappy he is. Screw you, Steven. Alright, if complaining was an Olympic sport, Steven would have more gold medals than Michael Phelps. Story 34. People who misuse reply all should be flogged. Last year, someone from one location sent an email to another location about an operations issue. The person attempted to CC the ops group, which I gather would be normal, but accidentally copied the all users group, so it essentially got sent to the entire company of some 16,000 people. This wouldn't really have been a big deal if 20 to 30 idiots didn't keep responding with reply all to please remove them from the email chain, thereby increasing the length of the email chain to the point where the company itself sent an entirely new email to all users telling people to stop using reply all in that email. Story 35. I'm pretty sure I'm that one person at my job, to be honest. My supervisor is always getting irritated with me because I stand there quietly listening while he talks to me and take longer than he prefers to give a reply, or just plainly don't know what answer to say right away because he's putting me on the spot and demanding an answer right then and there. Our boss is always giving me little lectures about not letting the customers control me because I interpret loosely defined policies with a bias towards satisfying the customer instead of milking them for more money. But when I do apply extra charges, I get grilled for making the customer mad. Nobody else has a problem making the bosses happy or answering questions promptly and swiftly, but I'm the one constantly getting grief for not being quicker to speak or not charging $50 for 5 minutes of extra work. I honestly don't know why I'm still employed because I'm pretty obviously the black sheep of this company. Story 36. One of the upper-level managers refuses to use anything other than the intercom when calling other employees in our office. The rest of us ring our fellow employees, and if they're not there, we simply leave a message. This guy, he uses intercom mode, so his voice reverberates loudly throughout the office when he calls. It doesn't help that I'm in an open office cubicle farm, so he'll call down for Bob, and if Bob isn't there, it's Bob. Bob, are you there, Bob? And one of us has to yell that Bob isn't there. It doesn't matter if we're in a meeting or on a conference call or whatever, someone has to be interrupted and drop what we're doing to address him. He's the only one in the office that does this. People have complained and he doesn't give a darn. Story 37. Our 25-person department has a holiday breakfast every year. This year, the breakfast happened to fall on the new secretary's first day. At the end of the breakfast, we went around the table and told our favorite holiday memory. Most were painfully vanilla memories about opening gifts on Christmas morning, family meals, etc. The secretary's story, on the other hand, was about a gift exchange at her previous office, where her white elephant gift was a groundhog she'd found on the side of the road a few days prior. Gotta appreciate the complete disregard for a good first impression. Suffice it to say that we will not be organizing office white elephant exchanges anytime in the foreseeable future. Story 38. The alcoholic. I worked at a semi-fast food type diner during college and I have horror stories for days. I probably got in more fistfights at that job than at any point in my life. Anyway, there was an old lady. She had to have been pushing 70 who would pound a case of beer before work. We eventually got on her case and then she switched to a bottle of peppermint schnapps when the managers became aware and wanted to smell her breath. She was a constant mess-up sober. Intoxicated, she made up for the mess-up she didn't make sober in triplicate. I never wanted to hit a 70-year-old woman in my life, but she pushed it multiple times. There's one time she kept messing up this guy's order, so I told her to shut the heck up, get the order right, and stop complaining. She told the customer that the chef told him to shut the heck up and quit complaining. The next thing I know, there's a 45-year-old guy in cut-off flannel sleeves bursting into my kitchen and threatening to drag my butt outside and teach me respect. It took amazing restraint to just tell him to leave or I'd call the cops instead of arguing. Sometimes I miss that job strictly because it was exciting. Story 39. I'm a salesman at a small family-owned company and I share my office with our accounts payable/receivable woman. We'll call her Amanda. It's a large office, so space isn't an issue, and normally nothing she does really gets to me too much. About once a day, however, my boss's wife will come into our office and loudly have personal conversations with Amanda. Very rarely, some small portions of the conversations will be about business matters. 95% of the time, however, they will talk about Amanda's kid or the boss's kids or Amanda's photography or literally anything else for far longer than is acceptable. I'm sitting at my desk trying to talk to a customer on the phone, and I have to repeatedly ask my customer to repeat what they say because I can't hear over their loud conversations. I've asked them to be quieter, and they will for about 10 seconds. I've asked my boss to talk to his wife, seemingly to no avail. The worst part about it is that my boss's wife has her own office. She could call Amanda into her office and talk all day for all I care, but no. They come into mine and gab like hens, slowly driving me insane. Story 40. I worked for a company that repaired mobile phones. The repair technicians needed local admin rights to use all the diagnostic and repair software they used. Of course, this meant they could also heavily use P2P apps. The IT admins tried to mitigate, but there was only so much they could do. One day, the head of IT gets an alert from our antivirus system that one machine in the workshop had a nasty Trojan. He drives over, goes to the technician stations, and unplugs his machine, gives him a fresh new one, and tells him what happened and suggests he be more careful. He specifically said his old PC was not to be used again. 30 minutes later, the IT manager gets the same alert. Yep, the technician went looking for his old PC, found it next to a door where it was to be collected, brings it back to the workshop, and plugs it back in. He was fired. Story 41. While we have a strict cell phone policy in our factory, our supervisors are pretty lenient about using them, as long as you're getting your work done and you put it away if a big boss happens through. We had this girl named Sarah texting her husband in front of our supervisor's supervisor. Our whole team and the boss watched her ignore the next station to finish the text. When he confronted her about her cell phone use, she turned to him and said, "No, I'm not." He looked utterly confused and asked her what she meant. "I'm not using my cell phone, I'm doing my job." He was left absolutely speechless. They've since cracked down on phones a bit, and Sarah only kept her job because we're a union shop. Story 42. Do customers count? There are two. The lady who gets on everyone's nerves by coming in near closing, asking for very specific things, asking people from the wrong department for help in other people's departments. It's a grocery store, by the way, and splitting her order. Then there's this other lady who, it seems, doesn't have anyone to talk to, so she latches onto whoever is willing to interact with her. She told me once about how she was talking to a man who was working on an oil rig and needed iTunes gift cards, but it wasn't a scam. He showed her pictures of his granddaughter. Honest. Poor lady. I tried to convince her it was a scam, but I don't think she listened. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. I'll catch you in that video.